It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and actions.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to It's About to Go Down. I am Mark Williams.
And I'm Cathey Ermias, and we have Alexis Braly James with us. She's amazing. She is an EDI consultant leader. She is teaching organizations all over the world to bring, finding a new way, bringing joy to this work. But really what it's all about, it's bringing joy to anti-racism. Bringing joy to anti-racism. Now, I do want to say right out of the gate that we were talking about this idea, Alexis, right? And, we don't want it to sound cliche or like bringing joy, because there's so many people talking about joy, but we're going to start there because that's kind of the essence of what it is. But tell us a little bit more about this, and hopefully we'll make a hard left turn from this, like bringing joy.
Yeah, I think for me, growing up in the education system and becoming a teacher, we were talking a lot about race and racism. And the conversations also oftentimes ended in this tenuous feeling where I was dreading coming back to work or dreading my coworkers asking me follow-up questions. And it was oftentimes about blaming the white folks in the room and otherizing or asking the people of color in the room to reshare their trauma. And so when I started my business, Construct the Present, I really wanted to do it a different way. I wanted people to leave my conversations, my trainings, our strategic sessions, feeling hopeful and energized and excited to continue the conversation once it was over. And so I think about it as centering joy, but I also think that's so cliche. So I need a different way or a better way or a more authentic way to share it with people so they know what makes us unique and different.
And enter Marc and Cathey, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Marc. We gotta help this. This is important.
Yeah, this is really important. And, as you fellow educator, by the way, as I've gone to EDI, DEI, and the letters get mixed around a lot, depending on where you are on which side of the planet you're on. I so relate to what you're saying, that after these conversations or after these trainings, professional development, there is that uneasy feeling. And so I guess what I'm already curious about from the beginning is, what makes it so not uneasy for you to have these conversations?
As the facilitator of it? Is that what you mean?
Forget as a facilitator, just as a person.
Yeah.
Whether it be a Black female, whether it be a facilitator, what have you, as a person, what makes it so not so hard to have these conversations?
I think for me, I've done a lot of healing around the trauma I experienced as a Black woman, both in my family being biracial, but also in the community. And so now I look back on those situations differently. And that healing has provided me a sense of hope. But I think also I feel a connectedness to people, even when they have perspectives that are different than mine or even oppositional to mine. I feel like our future and our lives are connected. So I want to stay in relationship with them.
This kind of that's a great question, Marc. Alexis, I know you, and I know you to be a very strong, positive, joyful person. Like, that's just like you exude that. That's your personality. And I'm sure that, many of us know, right? That's kind of that's something you can choose to look back. You even just said it, right? Looking back on things a little bit differently. I feel like the core of this idea will be that switch, because I think that's what you're looking for, Marc, right? you're looking for this because a lot of people will go into this stuff and feel heavy and uncomfortable, not joyful and not hopeful. But Alexis has found a way not only to do it for herself, but she also teaches this. So I think we first want to get to that. We want to get to that moment where it can switch for people. And what do you think that is, Alexis?
Well, I think we can look at the world and see all the things that are wrong with it and stay there. And that can feel really overwhelming and systemically oppressive. But if we look to where there are pockets of things working and amplify those versus focusing on what's broken, I think that lends itself to energizing work and a starting place. Because I think sometimes in DEI, EDI, anti-racism work, we want to boil the ocean, not to mention with climate change, but we want to do all things for all people. And while I think EDI work is for every company, is for every individual, everyone has their own lane within it. And so really getting to the heart of what is the impact that you can make as an individual and as a company, that then can align people in their focus. And then we have a reason why we're looking at the history of the company or the history of the groups that are involved, because we're searching for where things have gone wrong and where things have worked. But it's not just a trauma theater where we're just sort of pointing out what people have experienced just for the sake of proving that we need to have the conversation.
Ooh. I love how you just said it's not a trauma theater. And you've got me curious as we explore how to flip that switch. You said, where are pockets of things that are working? So when it comes to anti-racism work, when it comes to EDI, when it comes to DI work, what are the pockets that are working?
I think giving power to women, people of color, and the LGBTQ community to make decisions both for themselves and on behalf of the company works when they're fully resourced and supported in positions of power that we know changes outcomes for people who look like them, but also benefits everyone. Paying people equitably. So running compensation studies and ensuring that there aren't pay gaps between identities. We know that works. Providing training with accountability. We know that works. Having EDI listed in performance evaluations and really monitoring that for leaders as high as the executive level CEOs, we know that works.
How much is that discussed? All of those different things that you've shared, how much is that really discussed?
I think we discuss it with our clients all the time. That's part of our process. But as a industry, I think we're pointing to what's not working more than what we need to do about it.
I wonder too, if we can, these are all great, I think, Alexis, for an organization, but I wonder if we can also, I feel like if you're giving this talk, you could inspire on the individual level so that it could be an inspiration that people could bring to an organization that might not be doing this type of work already. So, and if we did that, I mean, these are very specific things, and I like them, and I know that some of these things work really well. But what can we do on the individual? What are the things that we could focus on individually that we could bring more joy through, and there's more power through that? And not to put you on the spot, Alexis, gosh, I mean, I know you're definitely in this space but I'm even pondering it just as a concept right now, Marc. So because I don't even know, this is where I want to go, but also I know in this work, I feel like, and I'm just going to say it, I feel like sometimes in this specific work of EDI, DEI, anti-racism, that you can make some people feel like, oh, if you just, focus on the good things, that you're saying the bad things didn't happen, right? And so I know that there's a real space there where I think that there's a lot of power in what Alexis is saying and doing. But from a standpoint, if we stand back from a talk or an idea, what's the best way to say this? Maybe in a way too that other people aren't saying it. Like, I want to give her the best. I want to position this the best. I want this to be genuine and authentic to her. But I want it to kind of be unique. And so I really wanted to talk through that conceptually, not Alexis, in that moment, not super theoretical, like what should we do on the individual level? Like, is that the way to go? Yeah. I don't know, Marc, what are your thoughts on that?
My wondering is, how are you wording it right now, right? Because in order to get to what I believe Cathey is talking about, of how do we say it differently, I'm curious, how do you say it now? What's the way that everybody is saying it?
That's a good question. I think most people might describe it as trauma-informed, taking a trauma-informed approach to EDI facilitation. There's that phrase sparking joy. I don't think that's quite made it yet, but I do think that there's a book also that partially informs my perspective by Adrienne Marie Brown called The Pleasure Principle, which kind of talks about making finding pleasure in social justice work.
Okay.
Well, with that, Marc, so here's the thing, then that's definitely then, like, I like that you asked her that, because now we're definitely like, Alexis just takes a stand in that space. She's like, I'm not discounting that anything, there's no trauma, right, or anything. I'm just choosing to cling on to the things that are going to be more hopeful, more powerful, more positive, more joyous. And, that, I don't know, that's where my brain's starting to go right now too, is kind of like, it's almost standing on a wall between two things and saying, I'm standing on this wall above here. I could see all these things, but I also see that these things work. And Alexis is the perfect person to be standing on this wall, because she does the work, right? So she's able to see, in my analogy, it's just that she's able to see both sides, like a side where people are feeling the trauma or, this, and then a side where maybe where companies, organizations, personal people are choosing to cling on to the things that are more hopeful and joyful, and how much it's affecting.
Well, I wonder too, for the two of you in professional development opportunities you've been in, like, what was the difference maker of the times where you attended something and you left changed or energized, and other times when you left defeated? Or neither of you seem like you would ever be defeated, so maybe that's probably not the right word, but maybe just
like down.
Down.
It might be that same feeling you feel, Marc, when you're running, when you get, running to make the subway or something,
and you miss it,
exhausted, like,
and you don't make it, it's gone.
And you don't make it. Oh, Alexis, woo, yeah.
Cathey, it looks like Alexis has challenged us to a game of.
She has. I love it. We're already playing the first game. I love it.
Yes. I guess I'll start with, what was a professional development opportunity that made me feel excited and hopeful? Man, I've been to a lot, and one right now is not coming to mind, but what is coming to mind is that any professional development opportunity I've gone to that gave me, one, something very tangible that I could do, right? Or something very tangible that I could say to another person. Like where I could try out this new phrase, or I could try out this new, action or whatever it is. If there was something like that, that always gets me excited. It's almost like, you go to a comedy show and you hear a really great joke and you want to go back and tell everybody that joke and not screw it up. If I've ever gone to a PD and I'm like, the way Alexis said it, I gotta say it that way. That fires me up.
That's a good point, Mark. I think for me on that end of like leading, I was thinking of one really funny example, but I'll tell you the general thing first. I think anytime it challenges my thinking, I love my thinking to be challenged. And so if somebody says something and I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. Like that always makes me feel like I always feel great about that. Even if I don't believe it yet, like that, it's like inspired me to go research it myself or figure it out. But it's definitely shown me a new way. I'll give you the example. I have a friend who's hardcore vegan, and I think most of us know now the difference between a vegetarian and a vegan, right? Vegan is like all animal products. So, she wouldn't eat anything that was made from an animal or taken from an animal, anything, or anything that had a byproduct of an animal. I mean, really hardcore. So even within like veganism, I think there's like levels, right? Whatever level there was, she's like 100 out of 10 for sure, right? So I went to this like vegan conference and I was like, wow, there's like a whole conference around people talking about like, veganism. And I went into I remember going into this one session and I just felt like such an outsider. Like I remember the facilitator that was talking, I remember her saying things that I'd never heard before. I heard her saying acronyms that I didn't know what they meant, like a whole bunch of things. But the things that I did understand, I was like, that's a good point. I'm going to go check that out. So I found that I left and I think I became the more informed, not vegan, but I'm, more informed and like understood it. And so I think that's a big one, Alexis, for me, is
challenging your thinking
in a way that really inspires you to.
Yeah.
And what's exhausted me, I don't know if this was the same for you, Mark, but what's exhausting to me is when people perpetuate things that I've already heard before. There's nothing more daunting to me when I feel like I'm listening to somebody and I'm like, yeah, I've heard this 7,000 times the same way, or I could have just picked up my phone and found that out in like Google 30 seconds. That kind of gets me exhausted.
To piggyback off of that, what gets me when I'm at some kind of a professional development and the facilitator makes me feel and makes everybody else in the room feel like they've done something wrong, like they've screwed up, right? And it's like, for all the people in the room who say those awful things or who are thinking those awful things or they give dirty looks, when you do that. And I'm like, why are you attacking me?
Yeah. So maybe the start, Alexis, is too, right? Because I think, is what if you were like, let's imagine that you're in a room now full of a bunch of people, right? And I would say, for the sake of this fake room that we have you in, because, and if you didn't already catch on, we like to play games, just meaning like we will ask a question and then we're like, well, we're going to answer this question. And we play a game on the show. But if you're in this imaginary room, I would say for the purpose of this question, that it's a bunch of people, not a bunch of people at the same organization, just a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to get a whole room full of people to go, what is the thing that I could cling on to that's joyous and positive that I could be hopeful about? How do we get people to that? What would you do to get somebody into that space? What question would you ask them? What would you,
I think
I was about to say, you stumped it, Kathy.
Oh no, I know she's not. She's got the educator mindset. She's like, I'm thinking about my answer.
Yeah, I'm trying to be thoughtful. I think the question that really resonates is a time when you have connected with someone who you never thought you would. or, when you have a new relationship and things are really, and I don't mean a romantic relationship, but any kind of friendship. And it's awkward at first. You're like, I'm not sure if they want to get coffee or if they want to hang out for longer. Do they exercise? Do they watch movies? How do we get to know what we like so that we can have a meaningful time together? But then there becomes this rhythm after you hang out with someone a few different times and you get to know them, where there's a sense of ease that happens. And it's just like, oh, I know Cathey loves waterfalls. I know she eats cupcakes. Like, let's go. I don't have to overthink it. I don't have to think like, do I text her when I'm on my way? Or does she need a ride? But you just get into a flow. And I think that's what we're working towards in our workplaces, is that we're not doing this, like how you first learn how to dance, where it's like, and 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but that you're just like grooving, and you can be at work, you can be yourself. You don't have to over apologize. You don't have to guess at what other people are thinking, but you have this united perspective and goal. And then you have the best intentions, and people have shown you that they have theirs as well. And I think that's what I want to try to capture, or that I think that is what I capture in the conversations. It's the articulation of it that I'm struggling with. I know how to do it, but I don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah.
Cathey, I thought you asked a really good question by asking Alexis to think of a question. And I agree with you. I love this question. Thinking about a time when you connected with someone you never thought you would. What I also heard, Alexis, and I'm very curious about word choice, and maybe it's the English teacher in me.
It's always the English teacher in Mark.
It's always the English teacher.
It's always the English teacher in Mark.
Always.
Yeah.
You used the word rhythm.
Mm.
And I found it, and I wrote down the rhythm of anti-racism. And I was just curious.
Ooh.
Look at that.
Oh.
Word rhythm just, it really stood out to me, and part of me wants to ask you why you use the word rhythm, and yet I felt like you might have really just explained it when you were talking about that flow and that groove. I got to tell you, when I think of anti-racism or racism, the last word that would have come to my mind was
Rhythm.
I'm very much into music, and when a band gets together, it takes a while to vibe, or when an artist is with a producer or an engineer, it takes a few moments, which is why it's so common for people to work together over and over again, because they have that rhythm, they know that magic.
You got that
and I think that's where I want to get to, after we've done our collective healing, getting to that rhythm where it's just.
Oof. Mark, you're so brilliant. I love the English. I just want to say for the record, I love the English teacher in you. I might make fun of you, but I love the English teacher in you, because you always pull out a word that I heard her say, but it kind of went by, and then you pulled it out. So I wrote down on my paper, because when you were saying that, I wrote down, what if you practice the rhythm of anti-racism? And I was like, whoo, that is such a good, but you pulled that out. Like, I love that. I also was thinking, Alexis, you're saying like the articulation of this is obviously, it's important, right? It's important. And a lot of people are talking about it, and a lot of people are saying it in the same way too. And so you always kind of naturally want to come up with something that feels more you than just the general consensus of what everybody else is saying. Not that anybody else is saying anything wrong, but I thought of another one, and maybe you could mess around with this as a question, but if you could think of something that happened in your life, and this is me in that room, right? This is me now being that person in the room, maybe asking the question. I think my question too would maybe be something like, if you could think of something that happened in your life that seemed absolutely negative, like, and there's like, you could give me right now, you could, spit off 100 things that were negative about it. Mm-hmm. Name one thing that was positive about it. Like what? Yeah. Mark. I also love your facial expressions.
Alexis, before you answer, I went on a trip with a group of friends. I want to say it was in Pennsylvania somewhere. And I will tell you that out of all of the friends I went with, everyone was white. I will tell you that the resort that we stayed at, everyone was white. I will tell you that we went out to the pool. It did not occur to me until it was brought to my attention afterwards. I was told by a friend that when I jumped in the pool, everybody got out. I didn't notice that. The fact that my friends brought that to my attention and reassured me that I belonged just as much as anybody else is the positive spin that I took away from that. That I was still surrounded by some beautiful, wonderful, amazing people. And that was a strong reminder. So Cathey, when you asked that question, that's why I made that face, because I think it's such a powerful question that, Alexis, you probably could leave with. I wonder how many people have an answer to that question.
Yeah, negative experience that had a positive moment in it.
Or a positive outcome. I mean, I think all of us could probably think back to our childhood and think of something very negative that happened, but something has come to fruition because of that negative experience or whatever, something very positive about it, you know? And that's almost like I mean, everybody has that. Everybody will have, you know, even a, you know, loved and cherished family member passing away. There's negatives. There's a lot of negatives to them not being around, right? But then there's so many more positives that you could always add to a situation. So I feel like, Alexis, what you're trying to do is, again, if I picture you in this area where you can kind of see everything, and you're like, yes, there's always negative, but there's always positive too. And so all I'm saying, which is you, right? I mean, I'm getting very confusing right now. The English teacher, Mark, is going, what tense are you using right now? What you would be saying, though, is that there's just more power. There's just more power in doubling down on the positive. There's just more power. There's more to build from with a cement foundation of joy than there is of a straw foundation or a quicksand foundation of negativity.
Well, and I think, like, by no means am I trying to simplify anti-racism work to working out, but
Totally.
I think about whenever you're trying to change a new habit, whether it's eating more vegetables, drinking more water, working out, something. And if in your mind, you've already made up that it's not going to work or that it's going to be terrible the whole way, it's much harder to make that shift in your brain and your body when you're resenting it or anticipating something terrible to happen, versus if you're like, yes, I'm so excited, I get to drink ice cold water every day, I'm going to go to the gym, then all of a sudden you're looking forward to it. And yes, it's still hard. And yes, you know, I'm out of shape, I haven't worked out in 6 weeks, but my mindset will give my body different energy in the experience.
There's that music reference again.
Music is everything to me.
Well, then maybe we should stay there, Mark. I really like it, because it's kind of about, I mean, what you just said, Alexis, I feel like is finding your own rhythm in that too, right? It's like finding the thing that will, like, okay, if there's something that you really need to do, like you said, like if it's something like working out, right? If you're like, I just really need to do this. I want to feel healthier. I want to get in shape. I'm doing this certain thing for me, and I have a very different reason than somebody else might have. It doesn't matter, but I have to find the positive things that will make me keep going, that will make me do that, not just what everybody else is saying or what might work for somebody else. So a little bit, it's also finding your own vibe, your own rhythm. You know what I mean, Mark? I mean, you know that from
Yes.
especially from working out. You and I have had conversations about working out immensely.
Yes.
You're on your rooftop sometime doing like, stuff, and it's very different. Like I'm on a soccer field playing soccer, or, the way that we express it is very different. But at the end of the day, it's the same outcome of wanting things to be better.
Yeah.
And so maybe the work to, again, like you said, Alexis, not to simplify anything, because everything's nuanced and everything has so much history, so many different thoughts and experiences and everything. But maybe that's the thing. Maybe you empower people, maybe just at the very top level of what you're doing is you're just empowering people to find their rhythm via the positive, a spark will emit more energy for a fire than cold water or ice, or like, than something that might be negative charging. I don't know. That's my thought. What do you think, Mark?
I'm in fantasy land right now with this whole music thing. Alexis, I love music. I love music beyond loving music. And as we talk about this and finding the rhythm, I also start thinking about the experiences that we share, right? And how do we get into a space, or how do we talk about an idea by focusing on the experiences that we've shared together? Because I love what you said before about how when a band gets together, right, it takes a few times before they get into the rhythm and everybody's playing together, right? And so I just started thinking about, where does that place happen? And I don't know about the two of you, but if we're talking music and we're talking going out and dancing, which I definitely love doing, I've probably experienced the most equalizing, diverse, equitable, inclusive, I just threw out all those words, on the dance floor.
That's true.
That is true. That is very true.
And even what's unique, or what additionally resonates with that, is typically everyone's dancing to their own beat. Like we could all be hearing the same song,
that is so
but
true.
we might not be. I heard this funny thing, because I'm black and white, so much of my lens in life, not my lens as a professional, but as life, is like through black and white, because I see my mom and I see my dad, and they're vastly different. But like one time someone explained to me that white people dance to the words, black people dance to the music. And it was like a light bulb went off for me. And I was like, oh, that's why they're like swimming and doing that stuff. I've never seen you dance, Cathey, so I can't. This isn't about you. Just
Thank you.
More about my own parents.
No, that is hilarious. Swimming.
Everyone's having a great time.
The technical YMC. Like they're actually literally spelling out the words with their body.
Yeah, whatever they're saying, they're
I love that.
acting it out.
That is funny.
So that would be a great goal on the best dance floor, right? Is everyone gets to dance to their own rhythm, but it's not impeding anyone else's moves.
Yeah. I love
what would a DEI event look like on the dance floor?
That sounds like a challenge. We may need to have a retreat that ends in a dance.
And then you have like two of the most opposite type of songs that you could have, like, and
have you ever been to a silent dance party?
I have not.
Have you seen
that?
It's very fun to watch.
I have not seen it. I've heard of it. I'm intrigued by it, and yet bothered by it all at the same time.
Well, what's kind of cool about it, Alexis? Have you done it before?
Yeah.
You know how sometimes they'll have different songs that you can listen to. You can pick up a different color headset and you'll be listening to a different song. So literally somebody that could be your friend and with you could be listening to a different song. And so the pace of the beat is going to be totally different. One's going to be like really fast and one might be slower. And so you're looking at your friend and you're like, I don't know what the hell you're doing, but it clearly is working for you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a cool analogy, Alexis.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own silent disco, because what Marc's disco might be for him would look different than what would for you and for me. But in that you're trying to find that rhythm to your own anti-racism, because nobody really there. I mean, maybe there's exceptions to this, right? But who in the world really wants to practice being a bad person or a racist? Who many people are quick to say I'm not racist, right?
Yeah.
But nobody's that quick to say I'm absolutely 100% racist. Like nobody jumps to that, right? And so what would it take to find that rhythm, to find out, what it would truly take to be anti-racist? Like we had a lady, for instance, at TEDx Portland just recently. And Marc, I think I told you about her. She's developed a AI algorithm that will listen to somebody's speech and will pull things out of it just to inform you of things that you might not have known that could be non-inclusive, which is so cool. Might pull out a cliche that you've heard your whole life that you don't actually know what the background comes from. And then it's just like, hey, just so you know, this is what this means. And then you're like, oh God, I had no idea that's what it meant.
Oh,
so
it's interesting. I guess there's two questions on my mind for you, Alexis. And maybe this first one is for you and Cathey, because since you brought up the silent disco and I'm kind of foreign to it, can you just explain to me what it looks like? Maybe 100 people in the room, all possibly listening to the same thing, dancing differently. I said it always bothered me, the thought of it, because I always found the traditional way of going out to a nightclub being very unifying. And so I often wondered, how is that still unifying? And I'm not trying to challenge it, I'm trying to explore, because I'm trying to explore this analogy even further. Like, how does it still all look like you're all one group of people, all in the same place, still having the same time, even if you are listening to a different rhythm?
Well, I think what is unifying is everyone came for that experience, which is sort of it's both individual and collective, because it's just you and the music. If you're nervous about dancing, or you don't think you are the best dancer and you just wanted to move your body and be around other people, but it's connecting. If you're all on the same channel and you came together, then you can have that shared experience. And then what's unique about silent disco to the more traditional dancing is you're not bothering anybody who didn't want to participate. So they're oftentimes in more public places, or places where people want to have conversation or do other things.
You're not having to scream in somebody, Marc, you can picture you're standing next to somebody screaming in their ear because you can't.
Yes. What's the same or shared experience that we're all looking for when it comes to anti-racism?
Yeah, I think that immediately stood out to me as I was talking, because I think we all have our own individual work to do. And then we combine our work and our power really around dismantling oppression. And that's where it becomes this collective experience, because we're more powerful, more impactful as a group than as individuals, but we each have our own individual work to do.
I'm assuming that comes across when you do your trainings?
Yeah, we do a lot of personal reflection to start, and then pull out into, okay, now share with each other what's the same, what's different. How do you apply this to your role?
I want to check in with Alexis for a second, Mark. I just want to make
Mhm.
sure. I don't want to go down this whole route of rhythm if this is not something that you love or you feel like it, like I want to check. I just want to check in with you and see how you feel about it because I don't want to just keep going.
Yeah.
Like, how are you
I
feeling
like
about that?
I like the rhythm of
Okay.
anti-racism and finding your rhythm in anti-racism.
Yeah.
Those two, I think, are one, unique. Two, it combines the two things that I love. It's interrupting systems of oppression and music.
Yeah.
And I think music can be a lot of different emotions. So moving away from just focusing on joy, because that may not be where people are at in the moment. It may not be happy, excited, but sometimes when we feel sad, we listen to music, but it's still for the purpose of moving through the emotion, not staying there.
Yeah. Ooh. Love that. Good. Permission to move forward. Well, that is something that I thought of, Alexis, too, was like, I was like, oh boy, we can go down a whole rabbit hole with this. And so I wanted to make sure before we did that was where you wanted to head. But you are so right. I mean, there is such a psychological power to music with people. I mean, sometimes it is like, you'll hear a song and you immediately like, isn't it wild that people can usually hear a song and go, I was in junior high. I was in 8th grade. Oh, I was a senior in high school. Like, ask me any other thing that happened in my life. And I'd be like, it happened, I don't know, when I was a kid. I don't, like, you can't put a timeline to it, but I think there's such a power, a psychological power to music. Like, we feel connected to it. So it is a thing that could be very individual, but also collective at the same time. And there's so many little fun spin-offs you can do. Alexis, here's one that I used to train this as part of my marketing stuff. And it was this whole section on misheard lyrics, things that people thought that they heard. And so that could also be, you could make an analogy to that of people not meaning to be racist in situations, right? It was a misheard or misunderstood interpretation. Right, Mark? I mean, there's whole websites dedicated to like things that people thought that they heard. So, and they're funny sometimes. And I'll tell you both a really quick story just to show the analogy. I think, Mark, I've told this to you before, but this shows how deeply personal it can get. I have a stepsister and her name's Amber Moran, and she has an uncle named Bob, and the song Barbara Ann, she thought for her whole life growing up that it said Bob Moran because that was her uncle's name, not Bob Moran. They're saying Barbara Ann, but she thought it said Bob Moran because that was her, like, right? So
yeah, her frame.
That was her framing. That was her context over it. But many times when we're the intentions of things that we do, we might have our framing and we might be incorrect. We might be incorrect in our assumptions and stuff because of the context that we put over it. I don't know. That's just one thought, is the misheard lyrics.
Yeah, I like that. I could see like a whole series, because we try to do trainings that are not just one-offs because that doesn't change behavior. You have to spend at least 6 hours, 90 days on a topic to increase knowledge and change behavior. So I like that as a follow-up,
Yeah.
How to take responsibility in anti-racism work.
Yeah.
Do you incorporate music in your trainings?
When we were in person, I tried to do it in the virtual space, but sometimes people find it off-putting that they're coming into a Zoom room and the music is playing. So it depends. But yes, I do.
Well, I will tell you, and this goes back to a question I was asked earlier that you asked about a PD.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to a virtual PD about 3 weeks ago. I thought it was going to be the same old boring thing that we always see. When I clicked join video, there was a guy, a DJ,
Oh,
They had a DJ.
That's
He was from a local station. He was mixing. I'm going to tell you, it was like being at a barbecue. It was like 4th of July barbecue. He was asking people to give shout outs. And you got to understand, this is a city organization. People are shouting out their offices. People are shouting out their boroughs. People are shouting out people that they've seen on the call that they didn't know before. People were writing in the chat that, I'm about to do my 2-step. Thank God it's Friday. It was a party going on, and it went on for about 30 minutes before they officially brought on the speakers. And they even broke in a little bit later on. The DJ came back, and it was just,
Wow.
I love that.
it was so, magnetizing that it was just beautiful. So when you asked about that PD, that's the one that now comes to mind.
Yeah, I think you're making me think we need to bring it back.
Bring it back for sure. Yeah. Have both of you heard of this thing? This was really fun to do. There's an app out there. I don't know if this is technically what it's called, but it's like name the song, something like that, right? But it plays like a little tiny bit of the song, and then you have to guess really quick what it is. And the longer you take, the less points you get. So if you can do it like on the first beat, you get more points. And so when I was hanging out with my sister a couple of weeks ago, we were playing it in the car. I was driving, so I wasn't touching the phone, but I'd be like, that's Bon Jovi, like, or that's, right away, like, and so there's so many things you can do, Alexis, right? Like there's just many things that you can do, because sometimes it can just be like it could be something where you engage, where you bring it back to, you could use a piece of a song to remind somebody of something or ask what that makes them think. I also think another thing that you could do, because I had this idea for a storytelling class, Mark, a while ago. I was hanging out with some of my friends last summer, and we were walking, and I was like, tell me like a song that really gets you emotional, and then tell me the story behind it. And so I wanted to hear the story.
Oh,
song that makes you feel very emotional. And I didn't put anything on the emotions, right? I didn't say makes you feel really sad or really, really happy. I just said that. And so people said different things, and it was so fun. And now I won't even forget one of the songs that one of the guys talked about. I had never heard the song before, but it was Fly, Robin, Fly. And then I went and I listened to it. And he said when he was not a baby, but a kid, his dad, his dad wasn't in his life, his whole life, he had left. And but his dad, he has a fond memory of his dad. Like he had him up doing the airplane thing, right? And he heard the song. And so now every time I hear the song now, I think of that. And it just, so something individual can also connect, Alexis, right? If people can share something via music, I think music also just picks at people's memories. And so we can remember something a little bit more. That's why you always see music on TV shows and movies and stuff like that. So just another thought of a powerful way to use it.
Yeah, it definitely is more engaging, because like you said, the things that really stick in your mind are when someone does something totally different, not just saying the same old thing. So that's definitely a way to bring the energy around it, and the excitement is music. So I definitely, if nothing else, now you've reinvigorated me around that, where I think, I don't know, I got a piece of you get a piece of feedback and it sticks with you, and you're like, well, this is my bias, so maybe I should take the feedback. Because immediately I was like, well, that's stupid. What do you mean it's off-putting? But then I was like, okay, that's a red flag for me. If I immediately get defensive, it probably means I should take the feedback.
Right.
Maybe I lean too far into it.
You have a really harsh reaction. You're like, okay, let me check that.
There's something deeper there.
Check it.
Yeah. I'm excited to bring music back to the trainings I lead.
Wow. Cathey, I think Alexis almost jump-started that question that we always like to ask at the end, which is like, how has it changed for you, right? Because it's like that pinpointed it right there. But since Cathey brought it up, I think the game you're talking about is hurdle. No?
Is what?
Okay.
The app.
The app.
I was like, I was waiting for you. I'm like, what is Hurdle?
Oh yeah.
I think you might be right. My sister found it and downloaded it while I was driving, so I didn't see the name of it, but it could be, right? Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Hurdle.
Hurdle.
I
as
was
opposed
thinking
to Wordle.
track when you first said that. I was like, where is he going with the track reference?
Oh.
Oh.
I was like, Hurdle. Okay, yes. You
okay.
could be right. That could be it.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I bring that up, and I'm a big Wordle fan, and quite honestly, I tried Hurdle once, and I found Hurdle to be really hard. But I want to try it again. But in connection to everything we're talking about, so I jump on a family call once a month, and family from all over. And during one call, we decided to play group Wordle.
Oh.
And I found it. We took this game that really is played individually and made it into this group activity. And when you mentioned Hurdle and playing with your sister or whatever the app is called,
right?
I thought about how I could also see that as an activity to do, right? Like, naming songs, doing something together around music. So I just wanted to add that piece in there. I think Cathey, I think you said it best. We wanted to make sure that we were not doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down on the music thing and making sure that Alexis is okay with it. So, but Cathey, I think I cut you off and you had another thought.
Oh no! Well, this is what I was going to say. Alexis, I love that where we ended up into a space of like, you're like, oh, this is kind of reinvigorating the way that I do it. And I would definitely encourage. What I would encourage is like, of course, we're having a conversation here. We can only start some kind of thought. I would encourage you to like really explore, especially because you love music so much, explore what will work for people. Because you could experiment so many different nuances. You could take one song or one little piece of a song and then ask everybody to tell a story. What is that like? Tell me a story that comes from that song when you hear it or something. Somebody might say, oh, that reminds me of when my grandma passed away. Like she really loved that song. And then somebody else might say, oh my God, it was the day I graduated when that song came out, or, you might get various things. But I think you could start to go down that thing where it's individual and collective. That's another thing I think I took about what you were saying is you do that a lot in your work, but keep that in the space of the rhythm and the music, right? Is it like there's an individual experience, but then there's a collective experience. When I hear when Marc tells me all his wild and zany stories, almost getting on the David Letterman show because he used to work at not Urban Outfitters. Was it Urban Outfitters?
Yeah, Urban Outfitters.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. I can just picture Marc crawling up, up the wall, putting these backpacks up. And so like I get intertwined into other people's stories as well. And so I don't know, just that was my only thought is I like all the things that we said. I just encourage her to test the heck out of it.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that means that we can't wait until the wrap-up episode, so we can hear about how this is all manifested on the dance floor and on the professional development room.
Yep. Because at the end of the season, Alexis, we bring everybody back, and then we're like, okay, so what have you done? Since we talked, what's happened? Like,
oh, that's awesome! I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
definitely. So, Alexis, I kind of said earlier that I think you gave the answer to the question: how has this idea changed for you since we first started talking? Is there anything else you wanted to add about how the idea has changed for you before we start to bring this idea conversation to a close?
Yeah, I think the conversation about rhythm is really sticking with me because I think joy was more reactive to what I had experienced. So I was trying to put out the opposite of that, but then reflecting on what actually the message or the magic is in it is around rhythm and flow. And so that part is much more deep and nuanced. So I think it's a word that deserves to be next to anti-racism versus just joy, which is kind of flat.
Nice, very nice. Well, listen, this has been awesome. I love the idea of taking people from individual experiences to a collective healing, which was a word you used earlier. I love the fact that you've been able to marry interrupting systems of oppression and focusing on music. Absolutely amazing. And I'm already thinking about the next time I get called in for a PD about EDI, DEI, IDI, and the rhythm of anti-racism. I'm going to be thinking, what? I hope Alexis walks into the room and does this PD. Alexis, if for anybody who's watching and listening who would like to find out more about you or find a way to bring you and your rhythm in, how can they get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with me would be to go to our website, constructthepresent.com, and fill out the contact form. But also we share all of this wisdom, magic, and rhythm on our LinkedIn page. So definitely connect on LinkedIn and follow our blog.
Nice. Join the rhythm, join the passion, and join us if you know anybody who wants to join in this fight or wants to bring a brand new idea. And whether it's you or anybody else that you know, we love, Cathey and I love to have these idea conversations and help you to figure out how you can take something that might sound cliche in your mind and breathe new life into it. And if you or anybody you know who's interested in joining us for an idea conversation, go to Marc and Cathey at gmail.com or it's about to go down show.com. And we love to spark a conversation with you. Alexis, amazing. I'm going to jump off this call and turn on some music and think about all the different people in my life that I've enjoyed music with. If we could roll out with a song, I'd love to do it. But for right now, we're just going to roll out to the rhythm of It's About to Go Down.